Hi there, welcome to my fourth annual review of the WRTH. I started doing this at the end of 2015 for the 2016 edition, so I can't believe that 3 years has gone by so quickly, and now here we are reviewing the 2019 edition. But as usual, brilliant book. The one hard copy publication that supports the hobby, the Bible in terms of what's broadcasting on what frequency on medium wave, long wave, HF. I always recommend this book to anyone that I talk to, and so 2019 edition, a brilliant book. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but this book is published in Oxford, in a place called Summertown, which is on the outskirts of Oxford, literally 4 or 5 miles from my QTH, which is a hell of a coincidence, really. Inside cover, the Win Radio Excalibur Sigma, and then the BBC World Service, and then the AR DV10 from AOR. Whole page ads. Don't know what that costs, but it must be quite expensive. Another advert for the Excalibur Sigma. And then there's the usual editorial, which this time talks about a guy, contributing editor, who has decided to retire, and a couple of examples this year of where radio has saved lives. Okay, so this is the standard. They usually focus on one of the contributors. This time it's Kai Ludwig. Interesting article, but also interesting here. They list other major contributors, and they list Dan Goldfarb, who I know, and they list Rudolf Walter Grimm, who I also know. When I say I know, I mean I know them through Oxford Shortwave Log, but nice to see their names there in print. And then onto the usual receiver reviews. There's this, the Win Radio Excalibur Sigma, £6,200, but 5 stars, the best SDR that they've ever used, and probably the best receiver they've ever used. So, but I should think so for £6,200. Interesting read. And then the SDR Play RSP Duo, close to my heart. This is a radio that I've reviewed and used and still use. Super value for £240, and you effectively get 2 receivers with this. And their review was positive. Probably not as positive as I would have thought, but still very positive. I think they summarised by saying that for the money, there's nothing out there that can really touch it, which I think is true. The AirSpy HF Plus, similar sort of money. Again, they were impressed. An interesting review. I don't think I would buy one, because I with an SDR Play RSP Duo, there'd be no need. But a very good wideband SDR. Then onto the Reuter RDR51 Pocket. I've looked at this previously, and I was only looking at it again fairly recently. This is basically an SDR receiver that fits in your pocket, and it got a superb review. The problem with this is that the cheapest version is £880, and you can spend approaching £2,000 depending on which bands you want. Having said that, the performance is superb. It's one of the most capable receivers they've tested. It's superbly built, and you can see it's literally an SDR receiver that you can carry around with you. So brilliant, but not one for me. And then something a bit closer to home, a review of the XH Data D808. I suppose you could argue in a way this is a bit late, as we've all been using it for a year, but and the review is positive. But there's a couple of things I don't agree with. They make a comment that anything other than telescopic antenna causes this radio to overload in some way, or cause intermodulation and noise. I certainly don't agree with that. I know from my own experience that that's not true. And the other thing they say is that SSB and CW reception is only okay, and I think it's a bit better than that. Overall, it's a positive review for a £70 radio, but for me, I think the review should be a bit more positive, despite the fact, of course, that mine actually blew up when I was in Brazil. So, but interesting to read nevertheless. And then a review of the ICOM ICR30, which replaced the R20, which I used to have, but I sold on eBay because the audio bandwidth filter was just simply too wide for serious DXing. And then coming on to the HF receiver guide, something here I don't agree with again and don't understand. So at the bottom of the handheld, portable and budget section, you've got the Texan S8800 and the XH Data D808. And they both score 3 stars for selectivity. They both score 3 stars for dynamic range, and they both score 3 stars for overall value. And yet one costs £280 and one costs £70. So I don't understand how WRTH can score them as overall value, both being 3 stars. Makes no sense to me whatsoever. And then if you look further up the list, you've got the Sangean ATS 909X, which costs £225, an overall value of 4 star. So to me that makes no sense whatsoever. So this is one section of this book that I don't agree with, but nevertheless other people will at least find it interesting to read, but I don't agree with that. There's another section where they cover SDRs and serious shortwave semi-professional receivers down here, worth a look. And then the usual universal radio advert, and then an article on HF curtain arrays, which is interesting. There's a photograph of an array at Ascension, where my other half has worked previously. She used to have to go there. Broadcasting for Peace. This is an article about Dandel Cura radio. Excuse me. And Radio Nadarison International, RNI. Can't even pronounce that. Interesting though. And then V7AB Radio Marshall Islands. So this is about the 25 kilowatt station in the Marshall Islands that some guy, Mika Makalainen, up in Lapland with his 1,000-meter long beverage can copy. So on AM, on medium wave. So from the middle of the Pacific to Lapland on a 1 kilometer long beverage. That is a very interesting article. An advert for wireless, Practical Wireless and Radio User Magazine. Interesting that this is my photograph for my article on low-cost DXing, which actually made it into the WRTH, but as an advert for Radio User Magazine. Brilliant. Again, I recommend everyone gets a subscription. And then another really interesting article about the 440 kilowatt transmitter at Bonaire, TWR. That's another interesting article. Some more adverts, and then the usual. I think there's a digital update last year. This is becoming a sort of standard article. And then an advert for CQ magazine. And then the usual HF broadcasting reception conditions expected this coming year, and the matrix of most suitable frequencies based on where the listener is and where the transmitting station location is and which time of the year. Very good. And then how to use WRTH, Spectrum Monitor advertisement. SWLingpost.com, the website that we all know very well, and also shortwavearchive.com. Our friend has got another advert in again this year. He had an advert last year. And then the usual maps of the world with transmitter sites of note in red. So there you go, there's Africa, pretty sparse. United States, fairly sparse. South America and China and India, a little less sparsely populated. So there you go, quite interesting. And then there's I think the standard world time map and a table of world time zones for the countries of the world. An advert for the British DX Club. My article on low-cost DXing appears in this month's issue of Communication, their monthly magazine. I was just sent it recently. And then beyond that, it's the usual national radio, international radio, frequency lists, national TV and reference. And if I go to shortwave stations of the world, they start at 2350 kilohertz on page 571 and finish on page 591, 20 pages. So effectively 20 pages of shortwave stations of the world listed by frequency, the same as last year. And interestingly, 2 pages less than 3 years ago. So then just to finish, you've got the main country index, geographical area codes that the book uses, abbreviations and symbols the book uses, transmitter sites, location and decode tables, domestic shortwave transmitter sites, and then a list of clubs. A brilliant book. So there you go. WRTH 2019. And I can't believe it's been a year since I got that book, WRTH 2018. But nevertheless, still, the Bible, as far as I'm concerned. I think we need to support this book, you know, for sure. I just think that it's too important not to. If you look at, there you go, there's the advertisers index. Similar number of advertisers this time around. It's good to see. But as I said, definitely, my advice at least, if you really want to know what's broadcasting on what frequency, then this is the book you need. You know, the online information is always good, but this is a book that hasn't ever let me down. You know, I've never been misled by a signal using this book. Okay, well, as I'm dying here, because I've got a cold, I'll say thanks very much. Thanks for watching.